Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Hello, everyone. It's Gary Gomes. I'm here for another sojourn into Vedic astrology and what the next week holds in store for us. It's been kind of an important week for me personally. I've seen progress being made on so many fronts, and that's a good thing. I've also seen some changes take place, and that's a good thing. And also, I've had some obstacles removed that were barring my moving in certain directions, which is a good thing as well. So a lot of these things um, are really promising. The major thing to keep in mind, so we're going through some tough planetary activity right now. But the most important thing to keep in mind is every day we're reborn. Every day we have a chance to take our life and make it better and actually live the life we want to live. So that's really the most important thing. So every moment is new. Every activity is new. Astrology, Vedic astrology in particular, views the astrological chart as basically a map of life or a reflection of previous karmas that are manifesting in this life. So previous actions you've taken. Now, whether or not you believe in reincarnation, that's almost irrelevant, because basically, even if this is the first life for a person, we're presented challenges every day in the simple act of getting up, getting out of bed, feeding ourselves, going about our daily tasks, and meeting people and dealing with people. And it's so let's say the first thing you do in the morning is you get up and, excuse me for scratching, and stub your toe. Usually we go beyond that and say, okay, well, I stubbed my toe. I have to get up and put my clothes on and go outside or whatever I plan to do that day. We don't let that stop us from moving forward. And you should look at big disappointments in life as a chance to reset, a chance to reinvent, because everything in life, every setback in life is essentially an amplified reenactment of stubbing our toe. And that may sound, so like, well, you're saying, well, I lost a job, I lost this, I lost that. Those are things you can't regain your life. You can't regain your, once you're passed away, you can't regain that. But if you believe in a reincarnational cycle, you can regain that. So yes, there are infinite problems, but there are infinite opportunities. And we get so many chances. I love that particular school of thought. We get so many chances to get it right. And the more you get right, the more you think you know, the more you realize that you don't know what's going on. This is a temporary plane we're on. This is a temporary plane of existence. It isn't forever. Nothing is forever. Okay. And I mean literally nothing. Nirvana means blowing out. Okay, so essentially that void, that spiritual state, or whatever you want to call it, if you're not spiritual, that this is this world here is not the reality. The reality is something beyond this world, whether it's a void or a nothingness, or whether it's God's blue heaven. That's that's for theologians to ascertain, not for me. But I I think one of the advantages I had a little bit, or I won't say it's an advantage, one of the perspectives I have, it isn't an advantage because I don't think I'm better than anyone else. One of the perspectives that I have is that I studied history a lot when I was younger. I was actually a history major for my first few years in college. And one of the things that you realize is that everything that's going on right now eventually resolves itself, eventually passes. So even if you're going through like the worst stuff in the world, that resolves itself. So I'm not here so just buck up and get on with it. And if something doesn't work out, move on to the next thing. It's a simple solution. It's one that we often don't think about, but basically, yeah, we all have problems. We all have things that don't turn out exactly the way that we want them to. But that's no excuse to not try again, because we're put on this world to try. And I think that that's an important perspective to have, or a helpful perspective to have when you're looking at life and looking at the problems you've experienced. So I'm going to go to the chart now, where today is October 30th, one day before Halloween. And we're right on the verge of an important holiday in India called Diwali, which is going to happen November 4th. I'll be talking at the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam online on November 5th, I believe it is, or November 4th. And I have to get the date right in my head because I have to make a presentation. But that particular, so look for me there. Go to the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam online. And essentially what we are right now is at this particular stage in life, we're at, I'm trying to see if I can close this down. Hold on a second. Just get it. No, it's not really going to do anything. This might. Right. So I want to go through the chart with you and just let you know what's happening. Things have seemed pretty rushed lately. And also actions have seemed to have been taken place rather quickly. And the main reason for that is because in the virtual, oh, by the way, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Gary Gomes. You can contact me for readings or for lessons at 508-525-0001. You can text me or else email me at neivas@comcast.net or at garygomesg@gmail.com. And I want to look at the chart for what's happening right now. And I'm a practicing astrologer for about 31 years now. And I want to look at the chart for what's happening today, right now, at this particular moment. And we have, so I was making the point earlier that things have been happening rather quickly. And there's really one simple answer to that. It's really the fact that Sun and Mars are so close together in the sign of Libra. That usually deals with Libra's a sign, it's ruled by Venus. It deals with a sign of contracts, of interactions, of completed work. Saturn's exalted in Libra. And so a lot of relationships will either start quickly or end quickly at this time. Because the sun is debilitated, this is usually a time of endings. Okay, so, and it's no accident that fall, the word fall literally means a fallen sun in astrology, because essentially the sun is at its lowest point in strength. So this is when the days tend to shorten, right? This is the time of year the days tend to shorten. And the sun also, there's going to be an aurora this weekend, like a really massive solar storm this weekend. And so that's going to make people a little bit hotter or a little bit more final than they normally are. And it'll cause some anxiety because people will feel like they're being hurt or being attacked, or they have to make some final cuts or some final decisions. One thing that I am grateful for is that Venus itself has moved away from Ketu. So the Venus Ketu conjunction is marvelous for some things. So that the reason things are happening quickly, and the reason it's happening either positively for some people or negatively for other people, is because Sun and Mars are close together. People's tempers are short. Still, Mars is combust, and that's like a big furry. That's like a big fiery ball of energy in Libra, so in the house of relationships. And Mars is also aspecting Rahu, right? So people are panicking a little bit. They're getting a little bit anxious. They're getting a little bit frustrated, a little bit angry. And that energy will stay with us for a couple of months, to be truthful. But Mars is going to, ultimately, the sun's going to move away from Mars within about 15 days. It'll be in another sign. Mars will be stuck back here. We'll be outside of combustion range. So this is a time, especially when you're traveling, be very, very careful, pay attention. So even though, as I said before, this life is transitory, you don't want to make it more rapidly transitory than it has to be. Okay, you don't want to leave this world and go to the next one too soon. So be careful driving. The K2 Venus conjunction lessens the possibility of car accidents, because Venus is essentially the planet that rules vehicles or transports. Venus also rules to a certain extent because its natural strength is in the fourth house, home life. So emotions may calm down a little bit, but you'll still see people getting a little bit tense, and also a little bit self-righteous because Mars is aspecting Jupiter. And that Mars Rahu aspect is kind of dangerous. And let me explain why. Rahu is really kind of a greedy entity. It wants to experience as much as it can experience. It's what's called it's technically, because it's a graha or a planet, is really a deva. Okay, so this is going to shock some of my fellow astrologers, but Rahu is an Ashura, or is a negative energy that basically became a controller of the universe, and basically becomes what the Hindus would call a deva. But his energy is very acquisitive. It likes to worry the mind. It likes to obscure the mind by giving it strong desires. Okay, and as I've said many times before, Rahu is So let's make this conversation, let's make the theme of this about anger, desire, and motivation. Rahu is essentially the reason we reincarnate. It's the thing that we want in life. It's the thing that we desire in life that we haven't fulfilled in previous lifetimes. And Rahu is in Taurus, which is a sign connected with material possessions. Let's be honest. It's also connected with beauty, so a lot of people are dissatisfied with how they look, and they'll also try to make themselves perfect because Saturn and Mars are aspecting each other right now, right? Okay, so Saturn aspects 10 signs away, Mars aspects 4 signs away. But Jupiter's also there, so it's not giving us any perspective on what's Jupiter's fallen. It's in a bad sign. We're not getting a lot of self-acceptance. We're not saying, well, things happen for a reason. It'll take us at least until around late November for us to see why things that are happening right now are happening. And it's mainly to give us a chance to heal and recover. Okay. And so basically Jupiter will tend to take things away without really giving I would say a satisfying explanation right now. But Venus will at least allow us to say, okay, well, I'm ready for a new adventure. Venus is in Sagittarius. I'm ready for a new adventure. I'm ready for a new life experience. I'm ready for something different in my life. So that's good. But the Saturn and Mars goes like, wait a minute, you're not ready for this. You have to get, you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to do the other. And while that's true, there's nothing to stop you from starting your journey while Saturn and Mars are saying, but wait, you have to do this, wait, you have to do that. Because you can start your journey mentally, you can start planning things, you can start fulfilling your responsibilities, but keeping the longer term goal in mind, right? So this combination is a little bit tough. Mars aspecting Jupiter is a certain amount of self-righteousness connected with that particular combination. And it is one attribute that I really, it's not even dislike, that I really don't admire about Jupiter is the need to teach everybody. And sometimes I think people just need to learn for themselves. They just need to direct themselves. So it's a good planet. It's a great planet. Jupiter is like considered the best benefic among the planets because it teaches us lessons. But when Jupiter's in Capricorn, it teaches us hard lessons, and it also teaches us, it's also kind of mean. So I think, and also it's too connected to a certain extent with acquisition and the material world. It was in that sign. So it's weakened. So there's not a lot of so essentially when Jupiter's in Capricorn, there are ethical considerations definitely, but they'll be more connected with business ethics and things like that. Also, Jupiter has been aspecting Rahu. That tends to so the inflationary pressure that the entire world is feeling is being caused by that. The Saturn Mars opposition is causing a lot of the blockages in the supply chain. But Venus, at least in Sagittarius, is a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more friendly, a little bit more happy. But it'll also tend to make us idealize partnerships a little bit too much, make us forget that people are human. So I think but that transition just occurred like within the past half day, and I think you'll see a lot of positive changes with Venus and Sagittarius right now. But again, there is a tendency to idealize a relationship partner. So if you're in a relationship, don't expect your relationship partner to be perfect, because that will lead to disappointment. Okay, so if you want to keep the relationship going, allow the relationship partner to be a little bit less than perfect. Okay, but I think overall, at least from this chart, this is actually a good combination. You'll see a lot of people getting interested in other people. But again, we do have a lot of potential for fights. What this means on the world stage is, now we are going to have an eclipse coming up this coming the end of November and the beginning of December, and that's going to happen in the sign Scorpio. So I'm going to talk about that in the next few weeks, just to make sure that everybody's prepared for that. But what this means for world events is again, we do have problems with bad judgment on government. Government's weak pretty much across the world, or it's a little bit too my way or the highway. Saturn's aspecting the sun, and Saturn's aspecting Mars. And a lot of governments are willing to use enforcement mechanisms to make people comply. When the sun enters Scorpio, which will be in about 17 days or so, you'll start to see people starting to rebel against a little bit against their governments and start to question their governments, like, very actively. So be prepared for a little bit of chaos. I'm not talking about mass rebellions or mass revolts. That's not the idea. But a little bit of chaos connected with governments and a little bit of unrest connected with governments, especially after mid-November. The other thing that'll be interesting is we'll see Jupiter enter Aquarius around November 17th. And that particular combination is overall good for healing. It's good for detaching. It's good for higher ideals, or for more philosophical discussions. So you won't see quite as much resentment when Jupiter enters Aquarius. You'll start to see more thought and more process-oriented activities taking place. But Jupiter in Capricorn has been absolutely, it's been one of the worst dogmatic interludes I can remember. And I think it's mainly because of the Mars aspect on Jupiter and Saturn. So Mars has been affecting, Jupiter has been affecting Mars, or Mars has been affecting Jupiter for the past several months. You'll at least start to see those two planets separating a little bit in terms of influence, even though Mars is sneaking up on Jupiter, but they won't conjoin for a few months. And I think one of the things to keep in mind is when Mars aspects Jupiter or Jupiter aspects Mars, you'll see this very strong low tolerance level for a discussion or for a debate or for any kind of a peaceful resolution of things. It's going to be, it's a very rigid kind of an environment. Jupiter moving into Aquarius will actually help things out. It'll also help speed up resolution of the pandemic. It'll also help speed up resolution of the markets. So things won't be quite as crazy, at least in real estate. It won't be quite as crazy in terms of the supply chain after mid-November. But again, as I said, we have to be careful because that Sun K2 conjunction, very disruptive. Some possibility of some people like actually attacking governments around the world, and especially in isolated places. So they won't necessarily be near centers of power. I'm just going to make this observation. This is, according to the chart I have, this is Joe Biden's rising sign. So the Sun-Ketu conjunction in his first house is not really good for his health. So it doesn't mean he's going to, and it's not good for reputation either. So it doesn't mean he's going to pass away or even get seriously ill, but you should see some problems with health in the leaders of several countries, not just President Biden, but the leaders of several countries. And like I said, some actually, even in certain countries, maybe even armed insurrections. The other thing is, when you have this Saturn-Mars aspect, which is kind of dominates the chart. Whenever this happens, it really gums things up because people want things to be perfect, but they want them done quickly. And perfect and the quick are enemies of each other, usually. But basically, whenever you have a combination like this, it makes people a little bit hostile, a little bit impatient, a little bit angry. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot out in the world right now. People are very impatient. I've noticed it even driving wise. People are very impatient. People want, and like I said, people want to sever ties if they can, or want to renew ties if they can. So if you're, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody, it's a good time for fights. No times ever good times for fights, but it is a good time to clear the air, and there are some necessary separations which will take place, especially around the eclipse, especially around November 20th to December 4th. The major thing is, and again, the aurora borealis or the solar flare activity happening in Libra, kind of interesting because I feel it myself emotionally, and I think that basically a lot of people will be feeling it in terms of relationship life. So, and I'm not feeling it in terms of relationship life, but even in business practices, even in business partnerships and things like that. The moon is in Leo, which is a good placement for it. It's good for financial success over the next couple of days. But it is waning. It's heading towards that sun, so that's not necessarily a good thing. So it's probably a good time to kind of hold on to financial assets and not risk on major investments. Mercury is exalted. Communication will be really, really good, but it'll be variable because the moon's, so over the next few days, if you have any writing projects to get done or any kind of activity that involves communication over the next few days, especially after Monday, push them out the door, get them rolling because it's going to be a golden opportunity. All right, and Mercury's not going to stay in the sign for only for about another 4 days or so, and after that it goes into Libra along with Mars, and we'll have a lot of people lying and making up stuff again. So I think that this is actually kind of an interesting time because some of the stuff that I'm hearing on the news is actually talking about releasing information or investigations or things like that. This is a typical Mercury sort of inquisitive aspect. The problem is when it aligns with Mars, you'll see it used for propagandistic purposes. So just be aware of that over the next month or so. You're going to see a lot of propaganda rolling back and forth. And that's true not only of the United States, but also around the world. All right, so let's look at the world chart. I'm running a little bit behind now. So time, space, change. Let's look at our astro map. All right, so interestingly enough, so let's start at the left. Venus is running through Hawaii, so it's probably a great time to be on vacation there or on a honeymoon there. But again, expectations may be a little bit higher than you had planned, but people are going to be very loving, um, very confident in each other, very compassionate. That's good. Mercury's running down the West Coast, but the sun is moving into California. They are having some problems in California. I was hearing on the news the other day. And in terms of fires, if I recall again, and also in terms of government inaction. So it's really California has been slammed pretty hard over the past few months astrologically, and you might even see some violence in California over the next few days. But fires don't look like they're going to be leaving anytime soon, probably not until late November. And there is a potential for misrepresentation. Saturn is moving over the Midwest, so we have a lot of poor people being affected by this particular line over here. And this line is running up all the way through Minnesota, Wisconsin, Wisconsin, and all the way down through Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. And you also have a Jupiter line running through Texas. So everyone's heard about the immigration situation in Mexico. The stability of Jupiter is really what's causing the problem, because essentially, from what I can tell, there's no real management in place. There's no real wisdom being exercised as to how to handle this situation. After November 17th, you'll start to see more control coming, or more, at least more thought about how to handle this, but it's really kind of chaotic right now. The other situation is you do have people coming up from Mexico through Texas, into parts of the industrial Midwest, like Indiana and Michigan. So that part of the country won't be flooded, but there'll be a lot of people coming up through that part of the country. The Venus lines and the Moon line are running through New York City and Washington. So you may, and actually the East Coast. So you may see some more interesting cooperation. I wouldn't hold my breath, because Jupiter is the lord of Sagittarius and is still weak. But after around the middle of the month, you may see more of an effort to compromise, more of an effort to get along. I'm hoping that these issues over here in the United States and in Mexico, and over here between Texas and Louisiana, don't get too out of hand before that happens. I don't think they will. And you also see a Venus line running down through Colombia, Peru, Chile, and close to Argentina. So that part of the world may be getting a little bit of relief. And there's a Mercury line running through Brazil. Brazil's has had a lot of problems astrologically over the past year or so. I've been watching Brazil a lot, and it's not just because I'm Portuguese. I have no family in Brazil, but it's because it's such a big and important country. It's going to be a very extremely important country in the world economy within a few years. And Mercury's over here on the tip of Brazil, so Brazil's communication structure is getting better. But there are some problems with violence over here. This is down by Rio, close to Rio. And there's a Saturn line running close to Greenland, which really doesn't affect very much. But and there's a Jupiter line running. So Iceland's between Saturn and Jupiter. So they can expect some extreme weather because of that combination. I hope not a lot of more volcanic eruptions, but that's always on the table. Jupiter's running next to Ireland, and we have a Rahu line running through England and Wales and France and Spain. So again, we're going to see more panic around the pandemic. Hopefully, when by the time Rahu enters Aries, which will be around March of next year, a lot of the pandemic will seem to be under control. I was just recently hearing that rates are going down, disease rates are going down, in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world, but they can always swing up again. And there's a Venus line running all the way through Spain too. So there's a Spain, so Venus Rahu line. So there'll be some problems for women in central Spain and in Algeria and down through Central Africa. Okay. The other parts of the map I want to look at over here is a Saturn line going through Eastern Europe and into Russia. So that doesn't bode well for the economy in that part of the world. Actually, it's going through Sweden and Norway. Norway and Sweden, as well as Finland. It's just touching on. So that part of the world will have some kind of economic problems. So will Iran, and so will Saudi Arabia. Although Saudi Arabia is usually in much better shape financially and doesn't have to worry about a lot of these things. There's a Mercury line in Western Turkey, no other lines in Turkey right now. So I think you'll see Turkey pretty much in stasis for about another couple of weeks. But Eastern Turkey looks like there's some problem with poverty or with disease or with war. But communications are actually better than they have been for a long time. So I think you may be seeing some negotiated pieces. Pakistan Afghanistan and Pakistan have a Jupiter line running through them. So again, they're still a little bit disorganized and is brushing up against India, not far away from New Delhi, and down the tip. But there's actually a moon line running through Jupiter. So there's a little bit of anxiety, and we have a Jupiter line running over here down close to Calcutta and through Sri Lanka. So I think you'll start to see not really good management in India right now, although I have heard they're doing better with the pandemic. But still a feeling of being a little bit close to Bengal to a little bit of problems with like adjusting to life or getting supplies out to people. There's a Venus line running through China, so China's it's basically in recovery stage. So is most of Southeast Asia. So is most of Indonesia and Borneo. And even the Philippines and Japan look like they're doing well. Australia is still facing some problems with local governance, especially in the central parts of the country, down here, up through the north, and also New Guinea is going to have some problems as well. Finally, over here is a Rahu line threatening New Zealand, but not really coming close to it. And this over here is a Venus line, so New Zealand's pretty much protected. Um, I, I think one of the most fortunate countries I've seen over the past few months, at least in terms of these transits, in terms of what's happening astrologically, has been New Zealand. They've been blessed astrologically. They're also somewhat blessed in the fact that they're isolated, and they also have a widely dispersed population. So you don't overlook that in terms of looking at their blessings, but not to take away from the leadership, but they have certain natural geographical advantages other countries don't have. So overall, this isn't really a mess, but I look for the sun areas as being problematic because of the solar activity that's going on right now. So this part is the western United States, Seattle, Washington, in California, Northern California in particular. And let me get my big fat head out of the screen. And it's a sun line running off the coast of Brazil, so that could give some governmental problems. Sun-Mars line running off the coast of Brazil. And finally, Iran's really been taking a beating over the past few months, just in terms of the chart that I'm looking at. Iran and Iraq. And let's see now. Yes, the Saudis as well. And finally, Australia down here. So those are the parts of the world I'm a little bit worried about. I'm not saying there aren't bad things happening in other parts of the world, but the Sun-Mars conjunction has me a little bit bothered. The Saturn lines, which I've spoken about before, are also potential areas where there are going to be shortages and problems with getting things. So that's really what we're looking at in the United States is New Mexico up through the central part of the country. Okay, so I'll stop on that, and we'll talk about the individual astrological signs. Okay, for this coming week. All right, so we have. All right, so for our friends who are Aries, Sun, or a strong potential for arguments or disagreements with relationship partners, but also strong sex drive for them. Some financial benefits, some fame benefits are possible because of the Rahu in the second house and Venus in the ninth house. So that's good. And the moon, their reputation will be strong because the moon is in the fifth house. But again, they have to work really hard to maintain reputation. It's kind of a difficult situation for them. The other thing is, career-wise, again, they'll be working very hard, but they won't see the fruits of their labors really until next month. And let's see now, but then they'll be working very, very hard. This is a hard work year for them until really through next June, July. For Taurus has, again, not as many problems relationship-wise, not as many temptations to get involved with other people, but secret affairs are still possible for this sign because of Venus being in the eighth house. And the moon is in the fourth, so there's kind of a feeling of pessimism for them as well. Mercury's in the fifth, though, so they're going to be smart. They're going to be excellent communicators this month. Sun and Mars are in the sixth house. They're going to have to watch out for stomach or intestinal diseases. And K2's in the seventh house. K2's in Scorpio. So again, relationship partners may be a bit difficult to deal with, a little bit unpredictable, or have some kind of emotional problems. And Venus in the eighth, those seem to be very sexy, very provocative this month. Jupiter and Saturn are in the ninth. That's a good configuration for luck, and especially career luck. So that sign should show continued career luck. For Gemini, this will be June 15th to July 15th. Just to remind you, we're working with a sidereal, not a tropical zodiac. Venus is in the seventh house, so relationship life will seem good. However, keep in mind, the Lord of this house is still debilitated. So relationship life won't seem to be stable for at least another couple of weeks. Okay. So just keep that in mind when you're evaluating your relationship life. A lot of people with this sign are feeling a lot of relationship instability or uncertainty. And it's mainly because they're thinking a lot. I mean, their thoughts are really crystal clear. They're very sure what they want. But they're worried about extramarital relations. They're worried about, and right now the sign's able to attract additional lovers or additional relationship partners pretty easily. But they are worried about the solidity of their relationship life. K2's in the sixth. They have to be careful about drinking too much, eating too much. There'll also be, like I said, this tendency towards what I would call over perfectionism. They'll want to be perfect at all times, which is basically impossible to do, but they'll want to be as perfect as possible. Venus aspect in the first, so it's very good for them. That's really a good sign. So they'll sort of glow this month. Jupiter and Saturn are in the eighth house, so that means, again, career life is a little bit unstable. Their career opportunities are being pushed forward and pulled away. That'll stabilize after November 17th. And Rahu's in the 12th house, so again, pretty heavy expenditure levels. Moon is the Lord of Cancer, so Cancer is the next sign we're going to look at. That's July 15th to August 15th. Second house, good for money, good for financial growth, good for communications for the sign. But again, some relationship upset. Mars is aspecting the seventh house. So there'll be a tendency to be drawn into the wrong kind of relationships or to be a little bit abused or taken advantage of by relationship partners. K2's in the fifth house. They're a little bit uncertain about how they feel about people romantically. And Venus is in the sixth house. They'll feel like they'll have at least some kind of a problem for so they'll want to stick with a long-term relationship, even if it isn't necessarily the best for them. But they'll actually start to get a little bit more sensible around the end of November. Let's see now. Rahu's in the 10th house, a lot of support for career fame and career development. Leo has Moon in the first house, it's Lord of the 12th in the first, so that's actually good for financial growth, especially from other countries and other areas of the world. Mercury's in the second house, very good for financial, very good for clarity of thought, very good for speaking well. Sun and Mars are in the third house. This person is really not afraid of anybody right now. As a matter of fact, they may even be a little bit reckless and kind of anxious to get either involved with somebody or to get what's theirs. K2's in the fourth house. It's sort of a symptom of homelessness or being a little bit isolated from home life. Venus is in the fifth house. That's actually good for like new romances, but again, I would wait really for a couple of weeks before I got involved with anybody new, just because the Lord of the seventh goes to the ninth. Then it'll be a luckier period for you relationship wise and also business wise. The Rahu's in the ninth house, so there'll be a lot of desire for additional knowledge, a lot of desire for additional luck. Career life looks fine because it looks like it'll bring in a lot of money. For Virgo, I need to look down at something. Virgo has Mercury in the first house, so that's a really nice yoga called the Bhadra Yoga. And it makes a person look really attractive. They have like a really good body type. And also, but they'll be a little bit angry or a little bit upset at people. K2's in the third house, and they'll have problems holding on to money too because of the Lord of the 12th being in the second debilitated. And those will come partially through fights or through accidents. K2's in the third house, so the sign's got courage again. It's got more self-belief. Venus is in the fourth house, so they're usually acting pretty kind. This is kind of an unusual combination. We see benefics in two angles, and that's good for general luck of the sign, and good for money in particular for this chart. Jupiter's in the fifth house. That'll give, again, relationship opportunities, but again, I wouldn't act on them. And also Saturn's making you doubt whether or not the person you're interested in is really perfect for you. And this also gives some problems with kids or with luck. So you'll inherit some bad luck this month, unfortunately. Sixth house Lord. So am I saying inherit bad luck? You'll have some disappointments in terms of luck. Let's put it that way. Nothing horrible is going to happen. Sixth house Lord is in the fifth house. So again, this sign has to be careful for diseases and illnesses of any kind. And Rahu's in the ninth house, excellent for career growth. Okay, so in Leo, career notoriety is indicated, but luck in career is going to be there, although it'll be variable. So you'll make a lot of good contacts with foreign countries. For Libra, we've spoken a lot about Libra already. Libra's kind of angry this month, kind of perfectionist, kind of upset with herself, wants to do a lot of things, feels kind of blocked in or locked in. But its friendships are strong. It'll have friends from work. It'll have support from wife. So that's good. K2's in the second house. Not bad for money. Good for media presence. Venus is in the third house. So Libra will tend to be more diplomatic this month, more understanding, a little bit easier to get along with. Fourth house, Jupiter and Saturn, still some delays in terms of housing and accessing housing. And Rahu's in the eighth and Moon's in the 11th. So Rahu's in the eighth, unexpected gains, big gains. Moon is in the 11th, change in the source of gains. Scorpio has, I need to check this. Scorpio has K2 in the first house, but at least it has Venus in the second house. And Rahu's in the seventh house. So it's going to give problems with relationship partners, but at least a relationship partner will bring in some more money. And Jupiter and Saturn are in the third house. So it's going to still have a lot of drive, a lot of ambition to succeed, a lot of luck in that area. And so most of the planets are clustered over here between Leo and Capricorn. So that this is sort of a partnership-oriented chart. So essentially children through career. But overall from this chart, Scorpio will have a lot of courage in career life, a lot of ambition in career life. And Rahu in the seventh, it'll form unusual relationships with people from other countries, perhaps change in career though, or change in career direction. And Mercury's in the 11th house, good for financial gains. For Sagittarius, Saturn and Jupiter are in the second house. Moon is in the ninth house, and Mercury's in the 10th house. So career life is very good. Some problems with friendships, though, and some unexpected financial losses just because of this K2 in the 12th house. But Venus is in the first house. We'll be feeling pretty optimistic for a change. And after the middle of the month, we'll be feeling very optimistic. Jupiter and Saturn are in the second house, so good for financial growth, although slow. And Rahu in the sixth house, it has to watch out for health issues, especially connected with the throat and the stomach. Capricorn has Saturn and Jupiter in the first house. It's a good placement. The moon's in the eighth house. It's kind of a sexually attractive placement for the sign. And Venus is in the 12th, so this is good for relationships or for extramarital affairs if you're interested in that, but it's also good for meditation. So you don't have to go out. Friendships will be a little bit strained though. And again, career life will be a little bit upsetting or a little bit challenging just from the sign placement, but luck will be very, very good. Unexpected inheritances or gains, and fifth house, continued problems with children. Aquarius has Rahu in the fourth house, so there's some danger, there's some frustration connected with home life. K2's in the 10th house, career life, the person gets abandoned or misrepresented. Sun and Mars are in the 9th house, so that's actually good for luck, although supervisors or superiors will be weak or impatient. It'll be basically good for luck. Relationship-wise, there may be a change in relationship pattern for this person. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll divorce, but they may actually try to get new partners or new. So if somebody's single in this chart, this could signal the ending of or if somebody's married, this could signal the ending of a relationship, but not for another month or so. Mercury's in the 8th. The sign's really attractive. Really, it's really, when you have planets in the 8th house, people look at you differently. Jupiter and Saturn are in the 12th house, so again, kind of an expensive month for the sign, but good for financial gains and generally good for career life. For Pisces, Rahu's in the 3rd, so a lot of courage. Moon is in the 6th, some stomach issues come up again. Mercury's in the 7th, so again, popular people, you meet popular people, you meet attractive people, so that's good. Sun and Mars are in the 8th house, so again, this is kind of a sexy placement for this sign, so people will be attracted to you. And K2's in the 9th, unexpected luck, also kind of bizarre circumstances affecting luck. And Venus is in the 10th house, so career-wise, in action in the world, you'll be in good shape. And Saturn and Jupiter are in the 11th house, so friends will be good, but they'll also seem to be stodgy or a little bit judgmental. So that's it for this week. If anyone wants to contact me, again, 508-525-0001. Big things coming up for the channel, so don't forget to subscribe, like, and forward. And we'll be back next week. Thanks a lot, folks, and take care of yourselves. Namaste.